The crystal wine glasses clinked as my mother raised her third glass of the evening. The chandelier light caught the ruby liquid, casting small red shadows across our family's antique mahogany dining table. I knew what was coming. These casual family dinners always had an agenda. "James, sweetheart," Mom started, using her sweetest voice. "You know your brother Michael has been struggling since the divorce." I took a small bite of my salmon, carefully considering my response. "I'm aware, 3 kids in that tiny 2-bedroom apartment," Dad chimed in right on cue. "It's not right. I'd built my empire in silence over the last 8 years while my family thought I was just managing a small apartment building. In reality, I owned the entire Riverside complex, all 200 luxury units, the premium shopping center below, and the adjacent office tower. Total value $478 million. Speaking of apartments," Mom continued, setting down her wine glass with practiced precision, "that spare unit you manage would be perfect for Michael and the kids. The one on the top floor." My brother Michael sat across from me, not meeting my eyes. At 38, he was 4 years older than me but looked a decade older. His divorce had been messy. His ex-wife Sarah had caught him embezzling from her family's business to cover his gambling debts. Now he was living in their parents' rental property, paying minimal rent while working at Dad's insurance firm. "The penthouse isn't available," I said quietly, cutting another piece of salmon. "Don't be ridiculous," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "You're just the building manager. Surely you can arrange something. That nice Mr. Thompson who owns the building would understand. It's family." I suppressed a smile. Mr. Thompson was a fiction I'd created years ago. A reclusive owner who never made public appearances. In reality, I owned everything through my holding company, Davidson Properties International. Actually, that unit is occupied by our new CFO from Singapore. 12-month lease, just signed last week. "Well, tell them there's been a mistake," Dad said firmly. "Family comes first. Michael needs that apartment." I watched as Michael finally looked up, a familiar entitled expression crossing his face. "Come on, little brother, you know I'd do the same for you." No, you wouldn't, I thought. 8 years ago, when I'd asked to rent one of his empty storage units to start my business, he'd laughed and told me to get a real job instead. "The building is at full occupancy," I said. "Every unit is taken." Mom's perfectly manicured nails drummed against the table. "James Alexander Davidson, this attitude is exactly why you're still just managing buildings while your brother had his own business." Had being the operative word. Michael's business had failed spectacularly after he'd gambled away the startup capital Dad had given him. Meanwhile, I'd built my empire from scratch, starting with one small property and reinvesting every penny. Speaking of business, Michael leaned forward. "I've been thinking of getting back into real estate. Dad says you've learned a lot about property management. Maybe we could partner up. I've got some great ideas." Of course he did. Now that he needed something, suddenly my career wasn't so beneath him. "I'm comfortable where I am," I replied diplomatically. "This is exactly your problem." Mom sighed. "No ambition, if you'd just—" Her voice trailed off as the doorbell rang. Maria, their housekeeper, hurried to answer it. "Mr. Davidson," a voice called from the foyer. "Sorry to interrupt your dinner, sir, but there's an urgent matter requiring your attention." I recognized Thomas, my head of security. This was the signal we'd arranged, if there was actual business requiring my attention. "Excuse me," I stood up, folding my napkin. "Work emergency." "Really?" Michael scoffed. "What kind of emergency could a building manager have?" I walked to the foyer where Thomas waited with a tablet. He spoke quietly but loud enough to carry back to the dining room. "Sir, the Singapore Airlines Executive Board just landed. They're requesting an immediate meeting about acquiring the entire east wing of the office tower for their North American headquarters. The deal is valued at $127 million. I heard a wine glass shatter in the dining room. "Tell them I'll be there in 20 minutes, I replied calmly, "and have legal send over the preliminary contracts." Walking back to the dining room, I found my family frozen in various states of shock. Dad had knocked over his wine glass, the red liquid seeping into Mom's precious tablecloth. Michael's mouth hung open unattractively. "I should explain," I said, reaching for my jacket. "I don't actually manage the Riverside complex. I own it, along with 12 other properties in the downtown core. Davidson Properties International, that's my company. were valued at just over $2.8 billion as of last quarter. The silence was deafening. But, Mom stuttered. Mr. Thompson doesn't exist. Never did. I created him when I bought the building so I could operate without family interference. Now about Michael moving into the penthouse. I pulled out my phone and pulled up the tenant list. As I said, we're at full occupancy. Every unit is leased to Fortune 500 executives, international diplomats, or tech industry leaders. Average rental is $12,000 per month. Background checks and income verification are mandatory. No exceptions. Michael's face had turned an interesting shade of purple. You can't be serious. All this time I've been building something while you all assumed I was failing. I finished for him. Remember when you wouldn't rent me that storage unit? Said I needed to get serious about my future. James' dad started, his voice strained. Son, if we'd known, you'd have what? Treated me differently, expected things from me. That's exactly why I kept it quiet. I wanted to succeed or fail on my own terms. My phone buzzed, another message from Thomas about the Singapore Airlines executives. I need to go, but let me be clear. Michael is not moving into any of my properties. His credit score, income, and history of financial fraud make him ineligible under our lease terms. If you want to help him, that's your choice. But my business isn't a family charity. How dare you? Mom stood up, wine sloshing dangerously. After everything we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me? Mom, besides dismiss my career, mock my choices, and assume I was a failure. I built this myself, without any help from family. And I'll run it my way. I'm still your mother. Yes, you are, and I'm still the owner of a multi-billion-dollar property company. One of those facts is relevant to business decisions. The other isn't. I turned to leave, then paused. Oh, and one more thing. That rental property Michael's living in. The one you own, Dad. I bought it last month, through a subsidiary. Rent's going up to market rate next month. $4,800. The paperwork will arrive tomorrow. The sounds of multiple gasps followed me out the door. In my car, I took a moment to breathe. 8 years of careful planning, of playing the modest building manager while amassing my empire in secret. 8 years of enduring their condescension and dismissal. It hadn't been my plan to reveal everything tonight, but maybe it was time. My phone buzzed again. Thomas updating me on the Singapore Airlines executives. But there was also a text from Michael. We need to talk. I have a business proposition. I deleted it without reading further and started my car. The Singapore Airlines deal would add another $127 million to my portfolio. Not bad for someone with no ambition. As I drove toward downtown, where my real office occupied the top 3 floors of my flagship building, I couldn't help but smile. The familiar skyline stretched before me, dotted with buildings I owned. My empire built in silence while my family underestimated me. Tomorrow would bring the inevitable calls. Mom's tears, Dad's attempts to advise me on business. Michael's desperate pitches for partnerships or jobs. But tonight I had a multi-million-dollar deal to close. The security guard nodded respectfully as I pulled into my private parking space. In the elevator, I straightened my tie and checked my reflection in the polished doors. Not bad for a building manager. My executive suite took up half of the top floor, all glass and steel with views across the city. The Singapore Airlines team waited in the conference room, along with my senior staff. Through the glass walls, I could see Thomas had already provided refreshments and preliminary paperwork. Mr. Davidson. My assistant hurried over. The contracts are ready for review. Also, your brother has called 4 times in the last 10 minutes. Hold all family calls indefinitely. I instructed. And Sarah, send a message to building management at the Metropolitan. Effective immediately. All Davidson family members are denied entry without explicit authorization from me. Yes, sir. And the dinner meeting tomorrow with your parents. Cancel it. Send them a copy of Michael's new lease agreement instead. She nodded and retreated to her desk as I approached the conference room. Through the glass, I could see the Singapore Airlines executive standing to greet me. This was my world now. Boardrooms and billion-dollar deals, not family dinners and guilt trips. Gentlemen, I said as I entered. Welcome to Davidson Properties International. Let's talk about your future in our city. The next 2 hours passed in a blur of negotiations, contract reviews, and strategic planning. By the time we finished, we'd structured a deal worth $142 million, even better than initial projections. As the executives left, my phone showed 47 missed calls from various family members. I deleted them all without listening to the voicemails. In my private office, I poured a glass of single malt scotch and stood at the window. The city sparkled below, my building standing proud among the lights. 8 years ago, I'd started with nothing but determination and a dream. Now I controlled billions in assets, employed thousands, and was about to close one of the biggest commercial leases in the city's history. My desk phone buzzed. "Mr. Davidson, your father is in the lobby. He's quite insistent about seeing you." I smiled, remembering his dismissive attitude just hours ago. "Standard protocol, Sarah. No exceptions." "Yes, security will escort him out." Turning back to the window, I raised my glass in a silent toast to the city. My city. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, and undoubtedly more family drama. But tonight, I'd finally shown them who I really was. Not just James the building manager. James Davidson, CEO of Davidson Properties International. The empire builder they never saw coming. The night stretched ahead, full of possibility. I had contracts to review, deals to structure, and an empire to expand. My family's opinion of me no longer mattered. I'd outgrown their small thinking and petty expectations. Besides, I had a meeting with Chinese investors in the morning about acquiring another city block. Life was good at the top, even if it could be a little lonely sometimes. But that was the price of success, and I'd gladly pay it again. The morning after my revelation brought exactly the chaos I'd expected. By 9 a.m., my assistant had logged 127 calls from various family members, 3 unscheduled visit attempts to my office, and one rather dramatic scene in the Riverside Complex lobby, where my mother demanded to see that fraud Mr. Thompson. I watched the security footage with mild amusement while reviewing the Singapore Airlines contracts. "Sir." Sarah appeared at my office door. "Your brother Michael is live streaming on social media from outside the building. Well, you should probably see this." She turned her tablet toward me. There was Michael, disheveled in yesterday's clothes, pacing in front of my building's main entrance. My own brother, hiding his success from family. We supported him, believed in him, and this is how he repays us. By becoming some heartless corporate tyrant who won't even help his own flesh and blood. I pressed the intercom. "Security, please remove Mr. Davidson from the premises, and ensure our legal team documents this for potential harassment charges." "Already done, sir," Thomas replied. "Also, your mother has been calling local news stations. 3 have reached out for comment about the family dispute at Davidson Properties." Perfect. Just what every CEO needs. Family drama becoming public spectacle. My phone buzzed with a text from Dad. "Son, let's talk business. I have 30 years of experience in insurance. Your company could benefit from my expertise." "Partnership." I forwarded it to my legal team with a simple note. "Add to the harassment documentation." The Chinese investors would arrive in an hour to discuss the city block acquisition. I needed to focus on business, not family theatrics. "But first, Sarah, please come in. We need to handle this situation." My assistant entered, tablet ready. "I have our PR team standing by." "Good." Release the prepared statement about Davidson Properties International's history and structure. Emphasize our growth from single property to billion-dollar portfolio through strategic investment and management. No mention of family. And the media requests. Standard response. Davidson Properties International is a privately held company that maintains strict professional standards in all business dealings. We do not comment on personal matters or unauthorized social media statements. Sarah nodded, typing quickly. "What about the law firm? Your father just arrived there demanding to see your corporate documents as senior family advisor." I couldn't help but laugh. Dad still thinks small. He's looking for paperwork at the local firm that handles our minor lease agreements. Our actual corporate structure is managed by 3 international law firms, none of which would even take his call. Sir, Thomas's voice came through the intercom. Mrs. Davidson pursed. Your mother is now sitting in her car blocking the executive parking garage. She's demanding a family meeting. I pulled up the garage security feed. Sure enough, there was Mom in her luxury SUV, creating a scene. Several employees were already recording on their phones. Have her car towed, send the bill to her house. And Sarah, make sure our employees understand that posting company security footage on social media is grounds for immediate termination. Yes, sir. Oh, Mies, your brother just tried to use your old building manager ID card to access the penthouse elevator. Security stopped him. Deactivate all family ID cards and building access codes. Lock down all residential and commercial properties to authorized personnel only. And send a company-wide memo. Any employee providing access or information to Davidson family members will be terminated and legally prosecuted. Sarah paused. Even the holiday party invitation list. Especially that. Speaking of which, move our annual gala to the Metropolitan Museum instead of the Riverside Complex. Change all vendor contracts and security arrangements. I turned back to the window, watching the city that had made me rich. Below, I could see Mom's car being towed, while she gesticulated wildly at the security team. Michael was still live streaming, though his audience seemed to consist mainly of bored teenagers leaving mocking comments. My empire had taken 8 years to build. I wouldn't let family drama tear it down in a day. Sir, Sarah appeared again. The Chinese investors are here early, and your father's insurance company just bought a small block of publicly traded shares in one of our subsidiary holdings. He's demanding a shareholder meeting. I smiled. What's the stake? 0.0003%. Schedule the meeting for next February. In our Singapore office. Coach seating required. And your mother is now calling every major tenant in the Riverside complex, telling them she's the real owner's wife, and demanding access to their units for inspection. Send an immediate notice to all tenants clarifying the ownership structure and warning about potential scam attempts. Have legal prepare cease and desist letters for the entire family. My phone buzzed again. A group text from various aunts, uncles, and cousins. James, how could you deceive the family like this? We're all very disappointed. Expect us at Sunday dinner to discuss your attitude and how you can make things right. I showed it to Sarah. Cancel my Dynasty Trust's annual contribution to the Family Foundation. Redirect those funds to the city's homeless shelter project. Already done. Also, your cousin Tommy is telling people he's your vice president of operations. Forward his LinkedIn profile to legal and block him on all platforms. The Chinese investors were being escorted to the conference room. Through the glass walls, I could see them taking in the spectacular view, and the scene below where my family members were still creating chaos. Sir, Thomas's voice again. Your brother is now claiming he gave you the idea for property investment during a conversation 10 years ago. He's demanding 50% ownership. I straightened my tie and gathered my acquisition documents. Have legal send him the transcript from 8 years ago, where he called real estate investment a fool's game and refused to rent me storage space. Add a friendly reminder about his embezzlement conviction and what that means for any legal claims he might consider. Yes, sir. And Mrs. Davidson Sr. is now enough. I held up my hand. No more family updates unless they break actual laws or threaten real business operations. I have an empire to run. I headed toward the conference room, leaving the family drama behind. Through the windows, I could see Mom's SUV finally being towed, Michael running out of phone battery for his live stream, and Dad's car circling the block looking for free parking. Let them rage. I had a $500 million deal to close. Mr. Lee, I greeted the lead investor. Welcome to Davidson Properties International. Shall we discuss how to make both our empires stronger? Behind me, Sarah efficiently coordinated security, legal and PR responses to the family situation. This was why I built everything in secret, to establish my business without family interference. Now that they knew, they wanted to claim credit, demand positions, and insert themselves into my success. But I hadn't spent 8 years building an empire just to hand it over to the people who dismissed my dreams. My phone buzzed one final time. A text from Michael. Mom's crying. Dad's furious. This isn't what family does. I turned the phone face down and smiled at the investors. Now about that city block. Family drama could wait. I had an empire to expand. 3 days after my family's discovery of my empire, the situation had evolved from annoying to almost comically desperate. I sat in my private conference room, reviewing security reports of their latest attempts to insert themselves into my business. Your sister-in-law Sarah called, my assistant reported. She's retracting her embezzlement charges against Michael if you'll reconsider his position in the company. I took a sip of my morning coffee. The position he doesn't have. Yes, sir. She also mentioned something about joint custody arrangements being flexible if a suitable job opportunity arose. Forward the recording to her lawyer. Using children as bargaining chips won't look good in family court. The morning sun glinted off my growing collection of properties. The Chinese investors had signed yesterday. Another $500 million deal closed while my family created chaos in the lobby. Their latest scheme involved Michael setting up a folding chair outside the main entrance, holding a sign that read "Family Betrayed by Billionaire Brother." The security footage showed he'd managed to stay there for almost an hour before the rain started. Sir Thomas appeared on my screen. Your parents have just purchased the domain davidsonpropertiescam.com. Buy all similar domains. Have legal send a trademark infringement notice. And check if Dad used his business email to register it. His insurance company's board might be interested in that. My phone lit up with another text from Mom. James Alexander Davidson, if you don't call me back immediately, I'll tell everyone about that incident in third grade. I forwarded it to my PR team with a note. Add to the harassment file, and find out what happened in third grade. I honestly don't remember. The intercom buzzed. Mr. Davidson, the Singapore Airlines executives are here for the final walkthrough of their space. And your brother Michael is trying to join the tour. He's telling them he's the co-owner and executive vice president of family relations. Have security escort him out. Send the footage to his ex-wife's lawyer. Pretty sure violating the restraining order to harass international executives violates his probation terms. I stood straightening my tie. The Singapore Airlines deal was too important to let family drama interfere. But as I headed toward the elevator, Sarah caught up with me. Sir, there's been a development. Your parents have scheduled a press conference at their house. They're calling it The Truth About Davidson Properties, a Family's Fight for Justice. I checked my watch. When? 2 hours from now. Local news is already setting up. Call our media contacts, remind them about Davidson Properties' advertising budget and our history of exclusive story access. Then have legal prepare a detailed summary of every failed business venture my family has launched with other people's money. Already done. Also, your cousin Tommy is outside claiming to be writing an exposed book titled Behind the Empire. My cousin the tyrant. I couldn't help but laugh. Tommy can barely write a text message. Send him the standard cease and desist. And remind him about that incident in Vegas he begged me to keep quiet. The Singapore Airlines executives waited in the main lobby, watching curiously as security removed Michael's protest chair and signs. I approached with my most professional smile. Gentlemen, welcome back. I apologize for any family theater you may have witnessed. Shall we view your new headquarters? As we toured the space, my phone kept buzzing with family messages. Mom, I'm calling every business journal in the country. Dad, your grandfather would be ashamed. Michael, just give me a chance to prove myself. Various cousins, family helps family. I muted them all. The Singapore Airlines CEO smiled. As we reached the panoramic corner office. Impressive space, Mr. Davidson. Though your family seems concerned about our deal, my family is concerned about their access to success they didn't earn. I replied honestly. But Davidson Properties International operates on merit, not blood relations. Your company meets our standards. They don't. He nodded approvingly. Refreshing perspective. In Singapore, family business dynamics can be complicated. Family is complicated everywhere. I agreed. Business doesn't have to be. My phone buzzed again. A message from Sarah. Your parents' press conference has been canceled. Apparently, the Homeowners Association reminded them about bylaws regarding media events in residential areas. Also, their house is technically owned by one of your shell companies now. I suppressed a smile. I'd bought their entire subdivision last month through a subsidiary. Sometimes the best power moves are the quiet ones. Sir, Thomas's voice in my earpiece. Your brother Michael is now claiming he has proof that you stole his business idea. He's waving around a napkin with some scribbles from 2010. Send him the security footage from the bar that night, where he called real estate a sucker's game, and threw that same napkin away. Add a reminder about perjury laws. The Singapore Airlines executives exchanged impressed looks. One leaned over to whisper to his colleague in Mandarin, not knowing I spoke the language. He handles family pressure well. Double the lease term. By the time we finished the tour, they'd indeed doubled their commitment. A $254 million deal. All while my family imploded outside. Back in my office, Sarah waited with updates. Your parents have now started a social media campaign called #Justice for Davidsons. It has 6 followers, all family members. Your cousin Tommy tried to sell his story to a tabloid, but they declined when they realized he's never actually been inside any of your buildings. And Michael? Currently at a bar telling anyone who'll listen that he's the real brains behind Davidson Properties. The bartender called his, apparently he can't pay his tab. I signed the Singapore Airlines contracts and handed them to legal for processing. Pay his tab, add it to the harassment documentation, and send him a bill for today's security costs. Yes, sir. Oh, and your mother's latest text. If you don't call back, I'm telling everyone about your stuffed animal collection from childhood. I actually laughed at that one. Tell her I donated those to charity years ago. Tax deductible, of course. Looking out over my city, I watched my empire's lights begin to twinkle in the dusk. Below, Michael was being escorted from the property again, still clutching his wrinkled napkin evidence. Mom's SUV had finally been retrieved from the impound lot, and Dad had given up circling for free parking. Sir, Sarah appeared one last time. Your family has announced they're holding an emergency intervention at their house tonight. They're expecting you at 7. I checked my schedule. Can't make it. I have a dinner meeting with the mayor about the new downtown development project. Should I send your regrets? No need. They'll figure it out when I don't show up. Just like they'll eventually figure out that this empire wasn't built on family obligations. As night fell over the city, I gathered my things for the mayor's dinner. My phone showed 312 unread family messages, 3 social media campaigns, and 1 poorly written blog post about the truth behind the Davidson fortune. I left them all unread. My empire hadn't been built on family approval, and it wouldn't be run on family demands. They'd either accept that or keep screaming into the void. Either way, I had a city to build. 1 month after my family's failed attempts to claim my empire, I sat in my penthouse office reviewing the final numbers. Davidson Properties International had closed $1.2 billion in new deals. Our best month ever. Apparently family chaos was good for business. The intercom buzzed. Sir, your parents and brother are here. They've requested a meeting. I checked the security feed. For once they weren't causing a scene. They looked different, subdued. Send them up. As they entered my office, I noticed the changes. Dad wasn't wearing his usual self-important expression. Mom had left her designer handbag at home. And Michael looked sober. James, Dad spoke first. We've been wrong. I gestured for them to sit but remained silent. Son, Mom's voice cracked slightly. We received the annual report from Dad's insurance company yesterday. They're facing bankruptcy. The board, they asked him to step down. The company I built over 30 years, Dad said quietly. Gone because I couldn't see the market changing. Just like I couldn't see what you were building. Michael cleared his throat. My ex-wife's lawyer showed me the footage of my behavior here. The judge, I've lost all visitation rights until I complete anger management and financial responsibility courses. I leaned back in my chair, taking in their collective defeat. Why are you here? Not for money, Dad said quickly. Not for jobs. We've learned that lesson. Mom reached into her purse and pulled out an old photograph. It showed me at 12 years old, proudly standing in front of a lemonade stand. You made $174 that summer, she said softly. While Michael was asking for allowance increases, you were reinvesting your profits into better lemons and premium cups. You were always different, Dad added. We just couldn't see it, didn't want to see it. Michael spoke up. I've enrolled in business courses at the community college. Entry-level stuff. Things I should have learned before trying to run my own company. No shortcuts this time. I studied them carefully. And nothing. Mom said, we're not here to ask for anything. We're here to say we're proud of you, what you've built, who you've become, even if we're not part of it. Dad nodded. I've accepted a junior position at a small firm, starting over, doing it right this time. My therapy sessions start next week, Michael added. The counselor says I need to address my entitlement issues. I stood and walked to the window, looking out at my city. Below, the Riverside complex gleamed in the morning sun. The Singapore Airlines logo was being installed on their floors. The Chinese development was breaking ground next week. The holiday gala, I said finally. It's next month at the Metropolitan Museum. Black tie. No plus ones, no speeches, no demands. Just a celebration of what Davidson Properties has achieved. They sat in stunned silence. If you can handle that might as being guests, nothing more, you're welcome to attend. Really? Mom's eyes welled up. One chance. I turned to face them. The first hint of manipulation. The first demand. The first attempt to claim credit or connection beyond being my family. It's done. Permanently. We understand, Dad said quietly. And Michael? The restraining order stays in place for all business properties. You can attend family events if invited, but your access to my buildings remains revoked. He nodded. Fair enough. I need to earn trust back. All of us do. They left quietly, without the usual drama or demands. As the door closed, Sarah appeared with my schedule. The mayor's office called. They've approved the downtown development project. Full tax incentives included. I smiled. Schedule the groundbreaking for the day after the gala. Invite the family to attend and that is as guests only. Are you sure? They needed to lose everything to understand why I built this my way. Now they can watch from the audience as I build even more. Looking out over my empire, I felt a weight lift. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But perhaps understanding. They'd finally seen me not as their failure of a son and brother, but as what I'd become. James Davidson, empire builder. The success they never saw coming. The power they couldn't control. The legacy I'd built my way. The city stretched before me, filled with buildings bearing my name and dreams yet to be built. My family might be in the audience now, but the empire, that would always be mine alone. Sarah, let's go build something new. After all, the best revenge isn't proving them wrong. It's succeeding so dramatically, they finally realize they were never right. The end.